Hey everybody, time to jump back in on the Sol 20 and take a look at some of the cards I've got in there. We've got two of these Econoram 7s. Now these are loaded up with, I believe they're the 1K by 4 chips. It's a little bit hard for me to view them with my bifocals here, the graduated Verilux lenses, but this Econoram 8, I believe, is 8K per card when it's fully loaded. But these, you know, being in that, have got some bug frass on them, and you know, a little bit gross. So it's time to clean a lot of this stuff up. And if you don't know what frass means, well, let's just call it dookie. Keep the video at a 7th or 8th grade level. So it's just a matter of, let's clean up some of this. We've got some 91% alcohol here in this little bottle. The little bottle's really cool. You just push down on it and it lifts the alcohol up to you. Got that off AliExpress. I'm doing a surface mount soldering session at VCF Southwest, June of 25. So not even a month away from when I'm doing this video, and that one is going to be fun. Showing people the introductory, you know, how simple it is to do hot iron soldering on surface mount as they build a couple of kits. Alright, it's a bit of a mess. A little hefty bag, which you might recognize from the Pico Boy video. So reuse that and just toss the Q-tips in as I go. Want to make sure to get these things cleaned up. I mean, after all, they were in a shed and they were full of bugs and had all kinds of rats crawling across the top of them. They were in pretty filthy shape. This is the cleaner of the two, but it was also the one that I was the most worried about the inside on, because it was the one that was on top and had the most rodent damage from what I could see under the hood. Now the back panel on the other one is far more damaged, but under the hood this one looked like it was going to be in worse shape. But it turned out to be quite beautiful inside, with the occasional rat droppings that came down in the gaps around the keyboard, and some in the back. Whereas the most of the damage done to it is probably going to just end up being urine from the rodents on the back panel connectors on the board. So I'm going to have to replace the tape in and tape out 1/8 inch jacks, as well as the other jacks on the back. Alright. Now the fun part's getting down in between some of these sockets. So got my really cool duckbill pliers here. These are Hosan P34s. Duckbill pliers, they're really great at straightening up chip legs when they're really bent far out of shape. But they allow me also to get these things to where I can get them down in between these chips easier and get this bug crap out of here. Alright. This one looks a lot better. Now for the edge connectors, we'll scrub the heck out of them with alcohol, but the best thing I can do here is to take a Papermate Pink Pearl pencil eraser and go over these, because it's a very, very light abrasive. It's far lighter than doing, say, a fiberglass pencil. So just to get the surface tarnish and crud off of the connector pins. There's a lot of beauty in these old boards. When you look at some of these, you can see hand-laid traces, hand soldering. Yeah, it's quite a bit of art to it. Now the cool thing about the alcohol is, if you want, you can take the flux off with it. It takes a bit of work to get the old flux off after being on there for so many years, but you know, you can take that off. Me, I'm not worried about the old flux. If it's been on this long and it hasn't caused any problems yet, it's not going to cause problems. Alright, this card looks a whole lot better. Next step is to see if we've developed any whiskers in the tantalum capacitors. So to do that, we'll use ye olde trusty multimeter. In this case, a Keysight 1232A. I like the Keysight meters. They're quite nice. Okay, that's just a rebrand of Agilent. Now these I picked up at Fry's dirt cheap when Fry's was closing them out. You know, it's one of those things of being aware of what the closeout sales are doing. Now underneath these heat sinks there are tantalum capacitors. And tantalum is bad about growing whiskers. When they grow whiskers, they short, and when you turn it on, they like to either short out the power supply, blow fuses, put the power supply and shut down if it's a switching power supply, or they just flat out pop like fireworks and throw lots of sparks. So 638 ohms. Nothing. 651. Nothing. And when I say nothing, it's just simply because I'm running this on continuity test, so it's limiting the resistance scale. This one right here is interesting. It's reading 449, where the others are reading closer to 650, 640. So I'm wondering if this one's going to go poof when it powers up, or if this regulator is running more chips than the others. But in any case, this board looks a lot better than what it did. So we'll put it back and go over to the next one. And next up we have the second the second RAM card. This one was underneath the other one, so it's still has some bug frass on it, but not as much. So there were some bugs that decided to go between the cards. And crawl over the heat sinks. And on the dip switches a little bit. The thing about bugs and mice and rats and all that, they don't hold it. They just go wherever they're at, whenever they're doing whatever they're doing. They don't care. So it's just random where you find the messes. I'm just tilting this back and forth in the light to see if there's anything down in between the chips on this board I want to clean out, but this one looks good. So this thing had 2 Econo RAM boards in it, a 3 serial plus parallel board, and a floppy controller. All right. Now on the Q-tips you want to use the ones with the paper sticks. Because the plastic stick ones just bend real easily. And if you have an Aldi near you, their Welby brand is cheap and works incredibly well. Alright, that looks so much better. Oh wait, let's check the caps. There we go, 650. Oh, got a problem over here. This one's reading 141.4. So I'm going to check that one as well. See what's going on over here, because that's a lot lower resistance than the others. Not real happy about that. Alright, next up is the 3 serial plus 1 parallel. This is the one that's just nasty. This one's got a lot of bug frass all over it. You can see it here on the connectors, you can see it here on the heat sink and on the chip. It's just a mess. So this one should take a bit to clean up. I'm not going to flip that Q-tip around. And the edge connectors are just here to make it easier to get the wires hooked up for what you need to connect it to. Now this card has bare jumpers on it, so you have to be careful with those, because it is easy to bend those over and cause problems with them. I noticed when I pulled this out that right here you've got jumpers between RDA and C6 and TBE and C7, and these 2 wires were bent and touching, so slide those apart. And it's neat seeing a gray epoxy body chip here from AMI. Now what I'm using here is 91% alcohol. Got that from Walgreens, or not Walgreens, CVS. CVS carries up to 91%. Walgreens, when I looked, all I could find was 70. So you want to use the higher ones. The higher they are, the less water they have in them. Now I'm going to have to take some of these chips out, like this one right here and this one right here, and check them because some of them appear to have corrosion on the legs. So I have to take them apart and take them out of the board and see how they look. The nice part about alcohol is, as you're cleaning it up, it kills any bugs, bacteria bugs. I mean, if there's anything left over in that frass, as dry and old as it is. I don't know if you can hear my dog in the background making noise. Now the other two, the RAM cards, were by Godbout. This card is actually by Processor Technology Corp. So this is a card that was made by the company that made the Sol 20. I'm not sure why this card received the lion's share of all the bug damage. This bug stuff sure has caused some corrosion issues, but on the plus side, the issues are far less than if this thing had a more severe rodent damage to it. Now, whereas the Godbelt boards had axial caps, this will have the more common orange drop type radial caps that you're probably more familiar with on the tantalums. Okay. In either case, they still have to be very carefully checked. Now I may, since none of these boards use plus and minus 12 volt, they're all 5 volt only boards, I may just grab one of my current regulated power supplies and hook it up and see what we get. See if one of those tantalums lets go and puts the power supply in shutdown. Wow, that looks so much better. Okay, now the next step. Be right back. The next step. More sheets per roll, yeah. The games they play. So at the other end of this, hanging loose out of the computer, is a DB25 female. And it needs cleaned as well. Yeah, it's a little dirty. Wire's a little bit exposed there. I think I may just go ahead and replace this wire. At least it's a lot more clean than what it was. I bend that back out. This one got bent. Straighten that back out. Alright. This one is done. As far as, well, let me work on this heat sink a little bit more. A little bit of corrosion on it. And then the last one is a fancy, but has a lot of jumpers on it, Tarbell 1011A disc controller card. Need a few more Q-tips here. This one was at the bottom of the stack, and it's got a little friend on it. Take his carcass and put him in the bag with the Q-tips. Now the critical thing here is to clean it, but don't break any of the wires. This card had some serious mods too. We got a couple of pins sticking out of the socket over here. Lots of jumpers, some cut traces. I don't know if she's coming across on the camera or not, but I got a snoring chow in the background here. All right. Battery's about gone on my meter. good. That looks good. There's only two on that one. Bring this one back over. And check all these pesky ones. Alright, these all look good until we power it up, of course. And with that, we got the cards cleaned up. Next step is going to be to do the keyboard. Alright, next step is the keyboard. But before we do that, just a quick recap on the memory card. One of the things I noticed was that the resistance was a bit low on the output of this voltage regulator, but it turns out that, easy explanation, you've got these resistor packs over here that are used to tie these lines high, going to the inputs of the chips that are reading them, and when you turn them on, what you're doing is you're taking that to a logic low. Well, it's tied high through these resistor packs, so every time you tie one of these switches low, you're taking and putting that resistor in parallel with the 5-volt bus down to ground. So Ohm's law, every time you add a resistor, you're dividing it out by the total, and the total resistance drops. So every time you flip a dip switch, it drops slightly. So that's the difference between the two cards, was the number of dip switches flipped. So now that we know that, we can just go ahead and move on. We've got our foil and foam kit and a filthy keyboard to take apart and clean. The interesting thing about this keyboard is it does not have a dedicated keyboard controller chip. It's standard, just regular logic, and I noticed a static RAM on there, 2101. Beautiful. A little bit of corrosion on a couple of the contacts. Hopefully we can get all that cleaned off and get this thing back in beautiful running shape. Looks like the foam and foil is deteriorated, so we'll have to clean all that out as well. Okay, board has been cleaned and is drying. Now we got to take out all this mess. Looks like it's not going to be easy. Try the dental pick. So if I poke it down the middle, seems to be the easiest way to get this out. Foam is totally deteriorated. This is a nasty mess of bug pieces, rodent mess, and powdered foam. Now, the keyboard circuit board looks to be in really bad shape with a lot of corrosion on the traces. So I'm afraid it's going to take a lot of digging around with the multimeter to test all those traces to see what we can patch and make work. Alright, now take this in and clean it up. Okay, through the magic of editing, we've got the keyboard clean and we've got the circuit board cleaned. But the circuit board's going to have some extra examinations done because it's had a lot of dark traces on it that are corroded up. So we'll look at that later. Right now we're going to do the tedious task of installing the foil and foam replacements. Okay. A little bit in here to get that. Alright, they're all in and they're not falling out. Just gotta get them down to where this thicker plastic is underneath these little tabs that hold the bottom part of this in. Some of these appear to be cut just a little bit off, leaning to the side. So just turn them a little bit in here to where they fit without rubbing up against this little hole. Nobody's popping out. These things like to fly. Beautiful. All right. Now for the fun part. Oh, and thanks Texelec. They didn't sponsor this. They didn't send me anything for free. I paid for my parts, but I know Kevin and I've worked alongside of him at Computer Reset a bit. All right. Now we get to test traces. Yep. Second LED one is on the bottom. Okay, these are a little weird to follow. Doesn't connect. Okay, got a dead trace here, but that trace is cut, appears cut. And we have some Keytronic patches on the backside, so I'm going to say that was purposefully done. Yeah, after looking at all these traces I've looked at, I'm going to say that these are all going to be good. Every dark trace I've tested has looked good. The thing that throws me off here is that being a capacitive keyboard, they've got all these traces here that don't touch anything, that just goes around and goes near the pads, which is kind of weird. But while we're here, alright, the two tantalums look okay. This keyboard looks good to reassemble. It does have some corrosion on a couple of the pads down here at the bottom. So not sure if that's going to make a big difference or not. We'll find out when we assemble it and test it on the computer. In the meantime, we'll put it back together. Still need to find a space bar. It's been a trouble spot. I've got a friend that can do 3D resin printing, and I've got a second one of these. Let me double check this right here. I know I've gone further than what these were, but just wanting to triple check. I know I've already tested them. That should be it. Grab the screws. I put them off camera last night after I finished taking the keyboard apart because the keyboard was so nasty. It left crap all over the work pad. So I took the work pad into the sink and cleaned it with soap and water too. Now there's two tricks here when reassembling old plastics. First one being turn it backwards until you can feel it set into the threads that have already been cut. The second part is don't tighten them down until you get several of them in so that you know that all the holes are going to line up. Now I suppose you could say there's a third one too, and that is do not under any circumstances over tighten them. Because over tightening them you will crack plastics this old. And that is something you do not want to do. Let me get my bigger screwdriver. Using a Phillips 1 instead of a Phillips 0. Fits the head better on the screw. Now, I will say one thing about tools. When it comes to tools, you want to spend as much as you can on the best quality you can if you're in a position to where you can do so, because these tools will last you a lifetime. Can't always find them new, and if you get a chance to find them used, if they're in good shape, by all means buy them, save the money. Check pawn shops, thrift stores. Like the screwdrivers I use here are all WEHA brand, German. These are Hosan P34. The P34 are the duckbill pliers, and the beauties of these is that the jaws are thin enough that you can get these in between legs on a chip, so that you can straighten them up, and then wide enough you can get a couple of pins at a time so you can straighten them up along the chip as you go along the body. Now Hosan also has a matching N34 for nippers, but the nippers I've got here are, let me see, these are Lindstrom, made in Sweden. Lindstrom 8150. Now these are incredibly expensive, a lot more expensive than the Hosan, but I got these at a surplus electronics store in San Jose, California. I think I paid $15 for it. And that beeps my multimeter turning off because I hadn't been using it. So let's sink these the rest of the way home. Again, we're just snugging them up. There's no need to crank these down. All right. One final step. Keyboard is done. I'm going to pull the space bar off the other one and use it, and then see if we can get one made for the second machine. This way I can try and have this first machine is fully up and running by VCF Southwest in just a couple of weeks. Next up, we're going to tear apart the rest of the computer, get it down to where I can take the motherboard out. I've got some components along the back edge of it that I'm going to have to replace. Some jacks, like the cassette jacks, and get those ordered from Mauser and in place. And then I'm going to have to take the chassis down and media blast it at Makerspace, take the top and clean it, take the side panels, wood side panels, clean those. I got some Murphy's oil soap, and then we'll put some Danish oil back on them to recondition them, and then take the power supply and replace any old caps in it that have cracked or look like they're bulging. Typically the smaller caps in the power supply. The large cans, we're going to try to redo those. We're going to hook it up to a Variac and slowly bring those up over time to try to reform those capacitors. So got a lot of stuff left to do. The next thing after that is going to be to take the CPU module that's on it, the NSC 800 module, which I can't find any information on the web about putting an NSC 800 inside the Sol 20 computer. So I'm going to go take that and reverse it and create a schematic for it, so anybody out there that wants to upgrade theirs to the NSC 800 CPU from the 8080 will be able to do so. And with that, I'd like to thank you for continuing on this journey with me.